In a world where everyone seems to be rushing somewhere, one man took a moment to stop, and that moment changed his life forever. It was a cold, rainy evening in New York City. The streets shimmered with reflections of neon lights as taxis splashed through puddles, carrying people home from their long day. Inside one yellow cab sat Michael Turner, a 45-year-old taxi driver who'd been driving for nearly 20 years. Life hadn't been easy for him. His wife had passed away 5 years ago, and his only daughter, Lily, was studying in another state. Every day was the same routine: pick up passengers, smile, drive, get paid, and go home to an empty apartment. That night, though, would be different. Michael had just dropped off a passenger near Fifth Avenue when he received another call on his dispatch screen. Pickup, East 74th Street. Destination, not listed. He sighed. It was getting late, and most drivers avoided non-listed destinations because they could end up too far away. But something inside him whispered, "Take it." The meeting. When Michael arrived at the address, he found a small, dimly lit apartment building. The rain tapped softly on his windshield. He honked once, but got no response. After waiting a minute, he got out and walked up the steps. He knocked on the door. After a few seconds, a weak, elderly voice said, "Just a minute, please." The door slowly opened, revealing a frail old woman in her 80s, wearing a faded coat and a knitted hat. She held a small suitcase. "Are you the taxi driver?" she asked softly. "Yes, ma'am," Michael said gently. "Do you need help with your bag?" "Oh, thank you, dear. I'm going to the hospice on 12th Street. Michael froze for a second. A hospice, that usually meant the person didn't have much time left. He carefully took her suitcase, helped her down the stairs, and opened the car door for her. She smiled faintly and said, "You're very kind. Most people just honk and leave." The ride. As they began the drive, the city lights flashed past the windows. The old woman looked out, lost in thought. After a few minutes, she said softly, "Could we drive through downtown first? I'm not in a hurry." Michael checked the meter and hesitated. The route would cost more, but then he realized this might be her last ride through the city she loved. "Of course," he said, turning the cab toward downtown. They drove past old theaters, parks, and coffee shops. At one point, she smiled and said, "I used to dance there when I was young. It was a little ballet studio. My husband proposed to me right after one of my performances." Her eyes glistened with tears, but she smiled. For 2 hours, they drove through the city, passing memories and places from her past. Michael turned off the meter quietly. Finally, they arrived at the hospice. The goodbye. Michael stepped out, helped her with her suitcase, and offered his arm to help her walk inside. The nurse came out to greet them. The old woman turned to Michael and said, "You've been such a blessing tonight. How much do I owe you?" Michael shook his head. "Nothing, ma'am. You don't owe me anything." She looked surprised. "But you drove me for hours." He smiled. "Some rides are worth more than money." She reached into her purse and took out a small envelope. "Then please, take this. Don't open it now. Promise me." He hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." She placed her wrinkled hand on his and said softly, "You're a good man, Michael. Thank you for giving an old lady a little happiness before she goes." With that, she slowly walked inside. Michael stood there for a moment, watching as the doors closed behind her. The note. When Michael got home that night, he remembered the envelope. He placed it on the table, but didn't open it immediately. Something about the whole evening felt sacred. He didn't want to rush it. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the blinds, he made a cup of coffee and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a short handwritten note and a small folded check. The note read, "Dear Michael, last night was my last night in this city. I have no family left. But meeting you reminded me that kindness still exists in this world. I once owned a small ballet studio, now closed. But I've kept some savings all these years. I want you to have this. Use it for something good. Maybe something that brings joy back into your life. With love, Margaret Wells." Michael unfolded the check. His eyes widened. It was written for $50,000. He sat there in shock, staring at it, tears filling his eyes. He whispered, "Thank you, Margaret." A year later. 1 year passed. Michael had used the money not for himself, but to open a small community center in his neighborhood. It offered free dance and art classes for underprivileged kids, in honor of Margaret, the ballet teacher who never stopped giving joy. Above the front door was a small plaque that read, "The Margaret Wells Center for Hope, a gift from a kind stranger." Every evening, after driving his taxi, Michael would stop by the center to watch the children dance, laugh, and dream. It reminded him that sometimes even a small act of kindness, a patient driver on a rainy night, can ripple through the world in ways we never imagine. In a city that never sleeps, one man's compassion lit a spark that kept another person's memory alive forever. Kindness doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to be real.